for perspective, it's like, think about your 10-year-old self or like 8-year-old self back when we would create at-home movies and like script it all out and like we were creating content. I mean, think about if you knew at the time that you were going to get paid to be able to do that every single day. I just feel like that puts things back into perspective. I'm Ashton Smith.
And I'm Jordan Long.
And we're coming in hot. We're 7th generation entrepreneurs with a passion for fusing creative expression and business fundamentals to help entrepreneurs powerfully expand their companies.
Legacy Creator is a show for creatives, big thinkers, and visionaries who are doing business differently. Together, we unpack topics to help you embody your creative identity, develop as a leader, and powerfully grow your business.
In a nutshell, we're calling you out and calling you higher. We're going to be talking about content creation today, and I feel like ourselves, our listeners, you guys probably feel the same in that we kind of have this love-hate relationship with content creation. And what I have noticed, especially like as we have worked with people in our membership, in our group program, even our private clients, the conversation around content creation tends to be one that's like frustrating and annoying and overwhelming. Even sometimes on our meetings, we're like, we have to create more content again. It's a new month. Like, wait, what? We're already here again? And like Jordan, I mean, I feel like your entire role pretty much like, what would you say? Like 80 to 90% of it revolves around creating content for the brand.
Yeah, I would say like probably 80%. I'm like trying to level that out a little bit more because like there are other things that I focus on in the business, but it's the majority of my job. And sometimes it can be so frustrating. I'm like, I have to create more content constantly. And it can just feel like you're on that like hamster wheel
all the time.
Yeah.
And then on top of just like constantly creating, you're constantly thinking about like how to create better performing content and like maybe like one up like what you created last time or what your, launch campaign was the last time. You're trying to like one up yourself. You're trying to be creative, but you're also trying to be strategic. And it's just like all of the pieces, it can be like a lot. But like I said, I do find that most of the conversation revolves around like, I'm so tired of creating content. Like it's so frustrating. Like I'm not reaching enough people. I'm not growing enough. And there tends to be this negative connotation just because content creation is a very central role to how so many of us run, market, and sell in our businesses. Like there are absolutely other means, other ways of growing your business. And anytime I talk to a potential client, it's like, do I have to use social media to grow my business? I'm like, no, technically, no, you actually really don't have to. However, these are the conveniences. These are the advantages to being on social media. I mean, it's like you can throw up an account for free today. Like, and I know so many people that started their businesses off of just like an Instagram account. I'm one of those people. So there are a lot of conveniences. And I think what we really wanted to talk about today is just shifting our perspective around creating content, finding ways that we can actually fall in love with this role and this activity again in our businesses. But again, too, just thinking differently and even thinking bigger about the content that you're creating and not being so narrow-minded and like hyper fixated on the little things. And so we're going to get into all of that and expand on that. But we really want to kick off with this concept of just falling back in love with creating content, because I feel like when I started my business, I remember like I would be so excited to create content for Instagram. Like this was back when you were part-time, like in the summers.
Or even like maybe before I came on.
Yeah, I think with the awakening though, you were still in college and I like got your help for some photo shoots. We would drive to downtown Raleigh and you would help me part-time, but it was a totally different era and vibe.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I feel like it was just like so fun because it wasn't, I don't know, it was like towards the beginning of the business, which is like when it starts, it's like all fun at the start and then you get into it and you realize like, I don't know, that you can experience like slow seasons and you can experience all these like negative sides to running a business that like, I don't know. So you like lose that perspective of how fun it was at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I am really wanting to create content that I'm like personally loving again, like for my personal stuff, but also for like work. Like I want to create content that I fully stand behind and that I love. And I feel like for me, especially last year and even into this year, I feel like I've gotten so caught up in like thinking so strategically about content that I kind of lost a little bit of like the soul behind it. And that's something that I've really that's been like on my like mind recently. It's like, how do you blend soul with strategy so that it actually feels like, I don't know, that it feels good? And not to say that it should always feel good, I guess, because like business doesn't always feel good. But I think that like if you are creating content and you're putting yourself, your unique perspective, your unique traits, and all of that, if you're putting that into your content, then like ideally it would be content that you love and that you resonate with and that you know other people will also resonate with. And I feel like I'm just trying to get back to that place right now of like, I want to feel good about it and I want to feel proud of it, but I also like, I want to love it. Like I want to love putting the content out there and enjoy it, because like I do feel like so often we can like fall out of that rhythm with it and we feel so much less joy in the process and like just are frustrated by it. I'm often frustrated by content creation. like we were just talking about, it's a lot of my job is like creating content, and I am more often than not more frustrated with it than anything. And I feel like I'm trying to shift my own perspective around it. Like enjoy the process of putting out the content and also enjoying the process of trying to figure things out along the way. Like when it comes to your marketing strategy,
the hard part.
Yes. Like learning to enjoy the process of like tinkering with things. For me, that's really hard. For some people, maybe it's a little bit easier, but like no one ever really has it figured out. And I feel like I'm trying to like constantly figure out what content I should be creating that will like, you know, bring in new people. What content should I create that'll like resonate with our existing community? And my brain's always on this spiral of like back and forth, and I'm trying to just figure it out. But I'm trying to like enjoy the process of figuring things out like as I go.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. And I feel like that's where it gets a little bit complicated, because it's like we have to look at it as like a creative outlet and expression, because I feel like if you don't look at it that way and it's like your predominant role, then everything's going to feel very robotic, and it's going to feel like it's just kind of a replica of what everyone else is seeing. So therefore it's not going to feel like fulfilling or rewarding, but it's also not going to be effective. But then on the flip side, like we are running a business, so then there is this element of strategy behind it as well. And what we have found, and we always come back to, is like it has to be an ebb and flow between both of those worlds. You have to bring the soul, but you also have to bring the strategy. But I even think about like for perspective, it's like think about your 10-year-old self or like 8-year-old self back when we would create at-home movies and like script it all out, and like we were creating content. I mean, think about if you knew at the time that you were going to get paid to be able to do that every single day. I just feel like that puts things back into perspective. Like there is an element of like all of us here, whether you're personally doing all of your content or you have a team member that's helping you with content, an element of this is like you get to create and put work out and like get paid to do that. Like decades ago, you know how many people, especially women, would like kill to be able to do that? Yeah. So all about perspective.
True. Yeah, I mean, you have to have both strategy and soul, because like if you don't have strategy, then you're just in like la la land, and you don't want to just be there all the time. Like you're running a business and you have to like turn a profit
Exactly.
to like have a successful business. But I don't know. I think there's a way to like have a combination of both. Using that wisdom and knowledge of like strategy. Like, you know, if your ideal audience is like, maybe you're targeting like men, you wouldn't want to just use like all your favorite colors if your favorite colors are pink and like you're very bubbly. Like that's not going to make sense, you know? Like you have to use some wisdom and make some sense of things, but all the while just kind of shifting your perspective around it and like just enjoying the process for what it is. And I don't know, approaching it from just a different vantage point, I guess.
Yeah. It's like, be mindful and intentional, but don't put so much pressure on every single thing like performing so optimally. And this is another thing I see people do all the time. And I mean, I've definitely fallen into this. I think that the longer I've been in business and like been in the online space, I do this a lot less. Like if we have posts that tank, I am simply not worried about it because it's one portion of our strategy. It's one touch point. It's one part of the customer journey. So you can't like hyper fixate on every little thing that you're putting out and every little thing that you're creating. That's going to suck the life out of you. That's going to suck the joy out of it. And then that's how you're going to potentially fall into that trap of like creating so much so based on strategy that you're kind of like watching what people are doing and then you're replicating because you're trying to fit into this box and formula that's going to be honored by like the algorithm. And it just gets exhausting so fast. And you have to remember that all of the content you're creating, it should be contributing to a larger strategy. Like you should have more to your marketing and your sales and your business plan than I'm going to put 3 posts up a week on Instagram. Like there's so much more. We do so much, even outside of our content creation, that contributes to your overall strategy. So I think just removing the pressure from it is another really, really big thing.
Yeah. And I feel like, one thing that I have struggled with is like just trying to keep up with social media trends or like, I would say, for instance, on Instagram, everyone says that like it's best if you have like a really, really short reel so that like more people will watch it over and over again and that will boost your views, that will boost your engagement, And like I get so caught up in that, but like first off, maybe there's like a little bit of truth to that. So like recently I've been, reconsidering maybe throwing out some reels that are short and just like trying to like give into the little like tips and tricks that people share just to test it out. Mm-hmm. But like for me, I'm like, I want a blend of things. So maybe some of the reels are like that to maybe try to like, see if that'll work to get new people in. But also like if I want to throw up a reel that's like, I don't know, 30 plus seconds, that may not be as strategic as some people think, but like maybe it's more of a soulful sort of piece of content or like it's something that you really believe in and you just want to share with your audience. Like that's what I mean when like you want to blend soul with strategy. It's like use the wisdom and like try out some things maybe in your marketing and your content that might help you boost your views and engagement, etc. But like at the end of the day, have a mix of things and don't solely give into those tactics and strategies just because you want to grow. Like that's just going to lead to you feeling so burnt out with your content. I know that's how I've felt sometimes. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God. We've all totally felt that. I felt that so much too before you came on to support. Like when you came on to support, I think there was like a gradual integration of getting you plugged in, but then you started to see like all the things that I was doing all by myself. And now given we do more because you have like a full role in the company, but it's really hard when you are like the sole person that's responsible of your marketing and your content and you don't have help. And like, I know you relate to that too, because pretty much a lot of it falls on you. And you do put a lot of pressure on that. But again, just trying to come back to like the ebb and flow between both sides. And it's funny because you were just talking about those short like reels as an example, as a tactic. You're never going to make everyone happy, like including the algorithm. I just saw a post today where it was like the first one in my feed. Somebody has like taken an issue with like these short reels and they're like, this is just like the most stupid tactic that you could ever use. It's not, people aren't going to enjoy that. It's too like quick. People can't actually read it. And they were just like pissed about it. I'm like, oh my goodness, like you're invested in this, number one, but number two, it's just funny how you have that opinion, but then you also have the opinion from other gurus that are like, oh, you need to be posting all reels like this. And you have to use like your own intuition and wisdom, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt as well. And I think that's what makes your content and your brand and your marketing unique. Like if you're just following like the frameworks of like this person, or you're trying to follow what a few people are saying, like number one, you're going to be like guided down like so many different paths because everyone has an opinion, but also you lose your own spark. And like your own creativity and the things that really do make your personality shine, which we've talked so much about on the podcast lately. Like that's what people are really wanting to see right now. Like they're wanting to see you. They're wanting to see the person behind this brand and this company that they might invest in, they might partner up with, and you lose that when you try to like fit into frameworks. So use your own wisdom with every single thing that you want to test out as well.
Amen.
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 What if you could turn your ideas into actual profit for your business? Right now, you may feel like you're doing all the right things, and yet your efforts aren't creating more money for your business. Today, that changes. Our free 90-day profit planner has helped hundreds of creative entrepreneurs transform their income goals into an actualization strategy since 2019. You can download yours for free today. Just visit myawakening.co/profit. That's myawakening.co/profit. Now, back to the show.
I feel like for me with content creation over the last year or so, I feel like I've gotten so caught up in vanity metrics, if you will. Just
like
personally, yeah. Just personally, but I'm sure a lot of other people experience that. It's just like you put so much effort into the content, and like if it doesn't perform well, or maybe you're not growing the way that you want on your social media platform, then it can feel like it's all for naught, like it's all for nothing, you know? But I think when we're so caught up in the content creation, if that's your primary role, or if that's something that you do a lot in your business, like one of my biggest pieces of advice would be don't focus so much on these vanity metrics. Like don't put so much pressure on follower count or views, likes and shares. Like I know those things are nice, and it is nice to like get a comment, you know, on a post, or it is nice to like get new followers, or it's nice when your reel performs really well that you like put a lot of effort into. But all of those things don't necessarily translate over to sales, you know? And if you're marketing your products and services through social media, the goal is to like market the product or service so you can sell it and you can get more revenue, make more of a profit. So I think it's just a matter of keeping perspective with that, because you could have like a really great performing piece of content, gets a lot of views, but like maybe you don't really get many followers from it, or many like ideal best fit customers in your door, you know? You can have a lot of followers and not really be landing sales. So it's like,
yeah, that's a huge thing. And I know I've shared that before, but like we have had potential clients and worked with people that have had collective audiences that equate to like hundreds of thousands of people across their social platforms, but they literally cannot make a sale, or they cannot make a few sales. And so again, it's taking everything with a grain of salt. Like, wouldn't you rather have a marketing strategy that is effective at acquiring those ideal clients in your audience and starting conversations with people that are actually interested in potentially working with you, you know? And you can do that. I mean, we've worked with clients that have done that with less than 1,000 followers on Instagram. So all that said, when you place so much emphasis on reach and impressions and follower count, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your strategy a disservice, because those things, like, they carry little weight. I think that it's okay to monitor these things, because you do want to make sure that you're being intentional with your content. Like, we'll make shifts in our content based on what people are liking and enjoying and what is performing well, because then of course it's going to get seen by more people. So there's nothing wrong with that. But again, when all of the focus is on those things, you just lose sight of what truly matters, you know? So yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's like we don't want viral content for the sake of just like going viral, you know? And I feel like didn't we have like a whole dedicated podcast episode to like going viral or whatever? Yeah, like you don't want to go viral just for the sake of it, because like you might not necessarily even attract like the right customers or whatnot by like going viral. That's not really the whole point. And it's not the whole point to like grow follower count, you know? Things like that don't necessarily matter as much. And I think when we place so much emphasis on that, through our content, like maybe we're creating a lot of content that we're hoping will go viral so we can reach new people and grow our audience, I think we can also lose sight of who's right in front of us right now and neglect our existing community. And we're not really serving them the way that we could or we should because we're like trying to get more and new people in the door. But like, I think the biggest thing, you talk about retention all the time. And like, that's like, I feel the lifeblood of many businesses is like retaining repeat customers and having people re-sign with you. You know, it's like if you provide an excellent experience for your customers and if you serve them really well, they will come back and they'll start buying into like what you're doing here, your larger mission and vision. They'll probably talk to other people about it because they're just so bought into it and they really like you and what you stand for and what you do. And they found value in what you offered. And then like that word of mouth gets out and then that in a way will lead to even more growth of like reaching new people. So I feel like we really need to like shift our perspective a little bit. Of course, you can focus on growth and trying to reach new people. I don't think that that's a bad thing, but it's like you have to strike a balance between that and like nurturing your existing community. Because if you neglect them, then like what's the point? Like then they're not happy. And then, you know, you'll probably have like maybe bad word of mouth marketing going on.
Yeah. And then you're always going to be hustling for new people and new sales and new leads.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think obsessing over all of that, creating more and more and more growth, it's almost a little bit counterproductive, even strategically, because when we talk about like serving the people in front of you, that's actually how the algorithm starts to favor you, right? Because if you engage the people that are already there, then your content starts to perform better. And then you get in front of more people, which isn't really the point that we're trying to make, but I'm just saying like it's kind of counterproductive. If you're always focused on the more and more and more mentality, you lose out on like potential growth and the effectiveness of your marketing strategy, but you also lose out on potential sales too. Like I think another thing to note here as well is like we have some clients that they like very consistently consume our content, even though they're already working with us. And that is a central piece. It's a part of their customer journey that dictates whether or not they continue working with us, because the way that you show up through your marketing, the consistency that you show, the creativity that you show, like that creates a reputation for you. And I think it just continues to reinforce like the value that you bring. Even if it is through your marketing, like your clients are still watching that. And it's a very central like element that they consider when they are vetting you and they're considering staying with you as well. So that's just something else to note. I think while we focus on growth, we also have to bring in the perspective of like the quality of what you're creating and the depth behind what you're creating. Because like we were talking about earlier, if everything is just so like fit into this formula, we're going to create 2-second reels and, you know, yada, 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 you kind of lose the depth to your content. And I feel like the depth is what can really create momentum for your content, but also really contribute towards the customer journey that people are having within your marketing. So we've had content pieces that we've shared that contribute towards signing like a 5-figure contract that then turns into a partnership with our clients that lasts for years. I don't know that I would say one specific piece of content did that, but that repetition and that consistency of your presence, of your brand, of your marketing, when it does speak to them in the way they need to be spoken to, it carries that depth, right? It's not just like a 2-second reel with like 5 steps how to. There's like depth and nuance that contributes towards like true results for your business. So if you're going to focus in on something, I would say like depth versus like viral tactics, because again, we have to think about what's the goal here. It's not just about the reach. I don't care if you have 100,000 followers and you have the best reach on your content. Are you landing sales? Are you retaining clients? What's your cash flow? What's your profit? If you're in business, those things matter so much more to me than these like viral trends and these vanity metrics.
Yeah. And I feel like to add on to that, I also think that when you're creating more like depth in your content and you're going deeper and you're sharing maybe some of your opinions on things, or you're really going there, I think as well that helps you almost like feel more fulfilled in the work. And like, you know, because we're talking about like falling back in love with content creation. I think when you're going deep with it, if that's your jam, because like that's our jam, I feel like that's where we feel the most fulfilled, is when we can go deep with the content. And I think that's why we really like the podcast, because it's a longer form sort of piece of content, you know, and we can go deep with it, and that feels more fulfilling to us. So
absolutely. So just like anything in business, I think with content creation, we can get so in the thick of like the day over day, and it's like you can feel mundane, because you're kind of like you said, sometimes you'll spend all this time on a piece of content, you share it, and it doesn't really go that far.
It flops.
It flops. You feel like no one sees it. You're like, does this really matter? Like, I just spent all this time on this. You know, what is it all for? And we just kind of get lost in the mundane parts of it. But I think that if we can shift our perspective on what creating content allows us to do, it does have a way of like making it all worth it, and just kind of like motivating us to keep showing up and keep sharing. And to me, as you create, like you're influencing. If you're creating content, if you're putting content out that, you know, has a specific like angle, narrative, point to it, like you are influencing someone, you're educating, you are inspiring, you are motivating, you're having like a say in someone else's life in a way, in my opinion. Like you're contributing to their life, to their business. And even if like 10 people see that, like the depth of impact of that can go pretty far. And so I think that it's actually a pretty big privilege and responsibility that we carry as content creators. Like you're getting to speak into people's lives. And I know that that sounds maybe a little bit out there or very big picture or maybe woo-woo, but at the end of the day, like that's a perspective shift that I want to bring to the table, because I think sometimes you can feel so small when you're like looking at all the numbers and you're seeing how other people's content is performing. But like at the end of the day, you're having impact on people's lives. Like we have had content that we put out where like I have screenshots of DMs where people respond and they're like, you have no idea like how much this meant to me, or how much this just changed my perspective, or, you know, I've been following you guys for a while now and like, this is how you guys have impacted me, or like keep doing what you're doing. And those are all very little things. But again, like it's just that reinforcement and that affirmation that like what you're sharing, like some people are seeing, reading, following along with that. And you do have those lurkers in your audience that maybe they never reach out and you'll never really know. But as you contribute and as you create and as you share, you are influencing people. You are contributing to their life or bringing value to them in some way. And I think that that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, you know, even if you have like 10 followers on Instagram, but they're like engaged and maybe they just really resonate with you and what you're putting out. Imagine having influence over 10 different people. I know that that number might seem small, but when you think about it like that, like put 10 people in your mind in a room. That's 10 individuals that they know other people that might be influenced by what you have like influence them on, if that makes sense. It's like if you have impact on one person, that ripple effect can go so far beyond just them. And if you have influence over 10, 20, 30, like the impact goes so far beyond just right now, just today. It goes so far beyond them. I mean, it really is a matter of just shifting your perspective to think bigger picture and longer term. So I think we think so short term with it. And honestly, when it does come to content creation on social media in general, it is short term, you know, like a post that you put out on Instagram like 5 months ago probably is buried and like not many new people will find it, but it's not necessarily the individual content pieces. It's you showing up and reiterating your stances on things, or you're talking about, you're sharing like perspective shifting sort of content, like, like we're doing right now. And like, imagine if you could shift the perspective of like one person to like maybe think a little bit bigger about their life or about their business, or help them think differently, help them approach their business in a new, different way. Like that impact can go so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when you take the numbers and you try to picture that in a real life in-person setting, it does put things into perspective. Like if your content reached like 100 people, like what if you were in a room with 100 people sharing what you shared in that piece of content? I think that you would feel and think differently about the power and the impact of that. And you might be more proud of that, but we get so lost in, again, just being behind a screen, and just seeing these numbers and wanting everything to be better and more and greater. But to Jordan's point, like if you have true impact on like one person, 2 people, 3 people, I really do believe that creates a ripple effect, because you're dealing with human beings that know other human beings. And so if you are somehow able to contribute to someone, shift their perspective, that has a way of potentially changing the trajectory of their life, their business. And as that changes them, that changes the way that they interact with the world and the people around them. And so all of that said, like the content you're putting out, it matters and it carries weight and it can impact in the short term, but it can also impact in the long term. Like who knows what it's going to look like after like we're not here on this planet. Like there's a lot of content creators that exist now, but this is really like the first wave. I feel like our generation is like the first wave of like massive content creators. And I'm very curious to see like how that creates impact on like maybe your family or your community, the population, like after we are not on this planet, because you're creating content pieces that can exist and live on like in the online space and can be found at any time. Mm-hmm. So just saying.
Just saying. I mean, I think about someone like Vincent van Gogh, who in his life didn't really reach maybe the level of notoriety or fame that he might have wanted to. In a lot of research I've done on Vincent van Gogh in the past, I actually realized, number one, misconception is that he only sold like one painting. And I'm pretty sure he actually sold more than that in his lifetime.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember how many, but I think he was actually commissioned to do a couple different things for some different people. I don't really know the full story on that, but that's a misconception that I saw. So I just throwing that out there, a little fun fact. But he definitely didn't reach the level of fame that a lot of artists want to. A lot of painters want to like, be world renowned. Like that's the whole idea of like in their minds of like making it, is to have all the eyes on you. And in some of the research I did, I feel like I read somewhere that like, if he had lived longer, he might have really started to gain a little bit more fame and notoriety in his lifetime, but it just didn't work out the way that he, might have envisioned. And he really didn't sell many paintings. It was only like a handful. It wasn't a lot, if that. But I mean, look at how far his work has gone today. Like how well known of a painter he is. You just drop the name Van Gogh and like everyone knows who you're talking about. They also know the style of painting that is like typical of a Van Gogh painting. It elicits that reaction from you because everyone knows who Van Gogh is. But I mean, think about how if he had never painted, we would never have his art today. And like,
if he had never painted, or if he didn't keep painting based on, his quote unquote lack of success, or like what he wanted his success to look like in his lifetime, like we wouldn't have that today. I can't imagine like not having his work today. And like, it's crazy because he has no idea like how far his work has reached and like how well known he is. Like he is no longer on this planet, but he lives on. Like, and I know that he is like a famous artist and there is like, his art is incredible. And that's a slightly different context than business, but he was a creator I think that, again, like we all as human beings have the ability to create, whether you are in the technology world, you're a painter, you're a marketer, like you're creating something. And that expression coming from inside you and being shared with the world, like the potential of impact, the point we're trying to make is like that can go beyond your lifetime. Like, and just picture that, imagine that, like you're leaving things behind for your kids or your family. Like I know our dad, like he writes books that he shares with a lot of people, but like a lot of his purpose and motivation behind that is to have those things for us and for our kids and for, you know, their kids, so on and so forth. And I know that's a big picture concept and idea, but I think Van Gogh is such a good example of this. Like you never know how your work might take off and like shape culture and like people and lives, like when you're not here.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the people, like all the artists that go to see Van Gogh paintings in museums and like try to mimic his style, you know? Like he's one of those big name artists that like people learn from and they gather, you know, these different skills because he was just like creating the most like interesting art at the time that like not many other people were creating, and like that specific style. And so like people are still learning from his work today. People are still getting new insights and things about art from his work today. So like that impact goes so far. And I think when we can shift our perspective to think bigger picture and longer term, it can also just like relieve a little bit of the stress of like, you know, one piece of content flopping is not the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Like what really matters is that you keep creating and you keep sharing your story and you keep showing up and doing the thing. Like that's what Van Gogh did, you know? And I mean, we see how that turned out for him, but also I feel like for those listening, the biggest thing that we can share with you as we wrap up is like, you matter and your work matters and the things you're creating matter. It doesn't matter if even anyone ever sees it. I think that's like a whole other topic that's totally different from this. But, you know, it matters regardless of if one person sees it, 1,000, 100,000. And again, like just coming at this from the lens of how can we think intentionally so that this can support your business, but also sometimes how can we zoom out? And how can we think about the true impact of what we're doing day over day? I think you have to have both perspectives, again, because we are in business. This is a business setting. And so we wanted to cover all of those angles today, but we hope that this just shifted your perspective and maybe gave you like some freedom, like some creative freedom that you can take back in your content creation and your marketing and your brand to like have fun again with what you're creating. Be intentional, be strategic, and you'll know when you're listening to this, which one you need to lean more into. Like, you know, I think you'll just know, oh, I'm trying to be way too strategic, or I'm being a little too like frou-frou, led by my soul and led by my, you know, I'm just frolicking in a field somewhere and I need to have more intention. So you'll know which one you need more of, but hopefully this just gives you the ability to like relieve some pressure and just really zoom out and see like the potential impact that your content can have, not only for your business right now, but also just the way it can impact people, human beings today, years from now, decades from now, and then even when you're not here. So this is a lot of food for thought. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you're entertained. We hope you're walking away with a new, fresh perspective. And thank you for spending this time with us. We'll catch you in the next one.